It was a calm afternoon in the city, with the sun shining through the streets and people moving about their daily routines. Cars passed by slowly, and the occasional laughter of children playing in the park nearby added a gentle background to the otherwise busy street. In the midst of this everyday scene, a young woman was making her way along the sidewalk. She was pregnant, her baby bump clearly visible under a loose-fitting jacket, and she was seated in a wheelchair. Life had recently thrown her a challenge, as an accident months ago had temporarily limited her mobility. But she faced each day with determination and hope. She had left her small apartment that morning with a sense of purpose. Her doctor had scheduled a routine checkup, and she was eager to make sure everything was fine with her pregnancy. Despite the inconvenience of navigating the city in a wheelchair, she had grown accustomed to the routine. The streets were not always kind to people with disabilities, and she had learned to be vigilant, moving carefully to avoid obstacles and making sure she had enough time to cross intersections safely. Her hands gripped the wheels firmly as she maneuvered herself along the pavement, and she occasionally paused to rest, taking deep breaths and smiling at passers-by who greeted her politely. As she reached a particularly crowded section of the street, she felt the usual buzz of city life around her. People hurried past with their phones and shopping bags, some casting glances at her as they moved. She focused on keeping a steady pace, her thoughts alternating between the appointment ahead and the baby she carried inside her. The city was alive with movement, yet in that moment she felt a quiet bubble of calm around her, a sense of personal space and routine. But that calm would soon be shattered. Out of nowhere, a loud roar of a motorcycle engine broke through the sounds of the city. A biker wearing a dark helmet and leather jacket came speeding down the sidewalk. His bike swerved dangerously close to pedestrians, who instinctively stepped aside, startled by the sudden appearance of the speeding vehicle. The young woman in the wheelchair froze for a moment, unsure of what to do. Her heart began to race as the biker drew nearer, and before she could react, he deliberately aimed toward her path. The wheelchair tipped slightly as she tried to steer away, but the biker's speed was too much. With a violent bump, he collided with her, sending her wheelchair crashing sideways. She cried out as she fell, pain shooting through her body, and the baby inside her seemed to jerk with the impact. Time seemed to slow for those nearby. People gasped, some covering their mouths in shock. A few rushed forward, but the biker was already revving his engine and speeding away, leaving chaos in his wake. The young woman lay on the ground, her wheelchair overturned beside her, and she felt a mix of fear, pain, and confusion. Tears welled up in her eyes, not just from the physical pain but from the shock of the attack. Strangers gathered around, some offering words of comfort, while others quickly pulled out their phones to call for help. One bystander carefully helped her sit up, making sure not to jostle her too much, while another checked to see if she was bleeding or seriously hurt. The young woman's body trembled, her hands gripping the sides of her wheelchair as she tried to right herself. Her mind raced with questions. Why would someone do this? Was she going to be okay? What if the baby was hurt? She took deep breaths, listening to the voices around her, some calm, some panicked. A kind woman knelt beside her, holding her hand and speaking softly, assuring her that everything would be all right and that help was on the way. Another man guided the wheelchair upright, carefully adjusting it so that she could sit without putting pressure on her stomach. Nearby, a few people had already called the police and an ambulance. The sound of sirens grew closer, signaling that help was imminent. The young woman's chest heaved with both fear and relief. She felt the warmth of strangers around her, people who didn't know her but were willing to stop and help in a moment of need. One of them offered water, and she took a small sip, trying to calm herself. Her hands shook, and she felt the adrenaline still coursing through her veins, making it difficult to process everything that had just happened. As she waited for the authorities, she noticed that some bystanders had begun recording the scene with their phones. While she initially felt uncomfortable with the attention, she realized that these videos could serve a purpose. They might help the police catch the biker who had attacked her, and they might also show the world that what had happened was real. In that moment, a small sense of hope began to replace the overwhelming fear. She could not undo what had happened, but she could take steps to ensure justice was pursued. When the police arrived, they approached her carefully, asking questions in a calm and respectful manner. She described the incident in detail, recounting how the biker had appeared out of nowhere, how he had collided with her wheelchair, and how he had laughed as he sped away. The officers took notes, their expressions serious as they listened. One of them promised that they would review the surveillance footage from nearby shops and street cameras to identify the biker. Another officer stayed with her, offering reassurance and explaining the next steps in the investigation. The young woman felt a mixture of relief and exhaustion. She was in good hands now, but the memory of the attack lingered like a heavy shadow. The ambulance arrived shortly after, and the paramedics carefully examined her. They checked her vital signs, asked about the baby, and gently moved her onto a stretcher to take her to the hospital for further evaluation. The young woman felt both nervous and comforted, knowing that professionals were now looking after her. She thought about the life growing inside her and how important it was to stay strong. The paramedics spoke kindly to her, explaining each step and making sure she understood everything they were doing. Their calm presence helped her regain a small sense of control over the situation. As she was being wheeled away from the scene, she looked back at the crowd of strangers who had gathered. Some waved, offering silent encouragement, while others stayed on the sidewalk speaking to each other about what they had witnessed. She felt a mix of gratitude and sorrow. Gratitude for the kindness of those who had helped her, and sorrow for the fact that someone could be so reckless and cruel. She vowed to herself that she would not let fear dominate her life. The attack had shaken her deeply, but it would not define her. The following day, the young woman woke up in her small apartment, still feeling the lingering ache from the fall. Her body was sore, but it was her mind that felt the heaviest weight. The images of the biker speeding toward her and the wheelchair tipping over played repeatedly in her thoughts. She had managed to rest at the hospital and received confirmation that her baby was fine, but the trauma of being attacked while helpless weighed on her like a shadow. She sat up in bed, her hands resting on her belly, and tried to focus on breathing slowly, reminding herself that she was safe for now. As she began her day, she noticed her phone buzzing constantly. Messages and notifications had piled up overnight. Her friends and family were sending words of concern and encouragement, but there were also countless strangers reaching out. People who had seen the video of the incident were expressing their outrage and offering support. Some shared messages of solidarity, while others asked how they could help. The sheer volume of attention was overwhelming, but in a strange way it was comforting. It reminded her that she was not alone, that there were people who cared deeply about what had happened and wanted to see justice served. Local news outlets had picked up the story by the morning. The footage captured by bystanders' phones and nearby security cameras had gone viral. Headlines screamed about the shocking attack on a pregnant woman in a wheelchair. Reporters were calling her apartment, asking for interviews, and wanting to cover her story. She felt hesitant at first, unsure if she wanted to be in the spotlight, but she realized that sharing her experience could make a difference. By telling her story, she could raise awareness about the vulnerability of disabled and pregnant people in public spaces, and possibly prevent similar incidents from happening to others. After taking a deep breath, she agreed to speak to one of the reporters. The interview was conducted gently, with a focus on her experience and her thoughts about what had happened. She spoke about the fear she felt when the biker approached and the physical and emotional pain of being attacked. She described how strangers had rushed to help her, offering comfort and assistance. She emphasized the importance of kindness and community, even in a city filled with strangers. Her words were simple, heartfelt, and powerful, resonating with viewers and readers alike. Meanwhile, the authorities were hard at work tracking down the biker. Using the video footage, eyewitness accounts, and other pieces of evidence, police were able to identify the man. The news reported that he had a history of reckless behavior, but had never been charged with something this serious. Law enforcement emphasized that they were committed to bringing him to justice and ensuring he could not harm anyone else. The young woman felt a sense of relief knowing that the police were taking the case seriously, but she also felt the anxiety of waiting for the legal process to unfold. She knew it would take time, and that the road ahead would not be simple. As the story continued to spread, it began attracting attention from notable figures who had platforms to speak out against injustice. One such figure was a well-known public personality who had often spoken about standing up against bullying and violence. He shared the story on his social media accounts, condemning the attack and urging his followers to support the woman. The post quickly went viral, drawing thousands of comments and shares. People expressed outrage at the attack, offered words of encouragement, and discussed ways to help ensure the safety of vulnerable individuals in society. The young woman read these messages with a mixture of awe and gratitude. It was strange to see how far her story had traveled, how many people cared, and how many voices were now echoing her experience. Some messages offered practical advice for her recovery, while others shared stories of resilience and survival in the face of similar situations. She began to feel a sense of empowerment, realizing that although she had been a victim, she could also be a voice for change. Friends and family continued to support her closely. Her parents stayed nearby, helping with daily tasks and ensuring that she could rest and recover properly. Her siblings visited regularly, offering not only physical assistance but also emotional support. They spoke about the importance of focusing on her well-being and the baby, and reminded her that she did not have to face this situation alone. Their presence was comforting, and their encouragement strengthened her resolve to continue moving forward despite the trauma. At the same time, the young woman found herself reflecting on the kindness of strangers who had helped her immediately after the attack. She thought about the man who carefully righted her wheelchair, the woman who held her hand and spoke gently, and the people who had called for an ambulance. Their compassion had been a lifeline in a terrifying moment. She realized that these acts of kindness, small as they might have seemed at the time, had made an enormous difference. They had reminded her that even in a world where violence could erupt without warning, human empathy and care could prevail. As the days passed, the young woman began to regain some sense of normalcy, though the memory of the attack remained vivid. She focused on self-care and recovery, attending therapy sessions to help manage anxiety and stress. Her doctor also recommended light exercises suitable for her pregnancy and condition, helping her rebuild strength and mobility. The process was slow, but each small improvement reminded her of her resilience. She knew she could not change what had happened, but she could take steps to heal and protect herself moving forward. The story also sparked conversations in the wider community. Advocacy groups and organizations for disabled and pregnant individuals began speaking out about the importance of public safety and accessibility. They cited the incident as a reminder that more needed to be done to protect vulnerable populations. Meetings were held, initiatives were discussed, and the young woman was invited to share her perspective. Although hesitant at first, she realized that participating in these discussions could help prevent similar incidents in the future and bring meaningful change to the community. Amidst all this attention, she continued to communicate with the authorities handling her case. Police officers provided updates on their investigation, assuring her that the biker would be held accountable. They encouraged her to remain vigilant and to reach out if she felt unsafe. Their professionalism and dedication gave her confidence that justice was within reach. She also began keeping a personal journal, documenting her experiences and emotions both to process the trauma and to record the journey she was undertaking. Writing became a form of therapy, helping her organize her thoughts and reflect on the support she had received. Social media continued to play a role in the unfolding story. Videos, posts, and news articles about the attack were shared widely. People offered advice, encouragement, and resources for recovery. Some even shared stories of similar experiences, creating a network of empathy and support. While she was initially wary of the exposure, she recognized that the attention could be harnessed for positive change. It was a reminder that while fear and violence existed, so did a vast network of people willing to stand up and make a difference. The young woman's experience also prompted personal growth. She began to recognize the strength within herself that she had not fully acknowledged before. Surviving such a traumatic incident, navigating recovery, and speaking out publicly required courage and resilience. Each step, from attending medical appointments to engaging with the media, reinforced her determination to move forward. She realized that her story could inspire others facing challenges, whether from disability, pregnancy, or acts of violence, and that sharing it was a powerful way to turn pain into purpose. Throughout this period, she maintained regular contact with her support network. Her family, friends, neighbors, and even new acquaintances from online communities offered encouragement and practical help. They checked in on her physical health, helped with errands, and offered emotional reassurance. The constant presence of these supportive individuals created a buffer against the anxiety and fear that lingered from the attack. It reminded her that no matter how difficult a situation might seem, human connection and compassion could provide strength and comfort. As the investigation continued, Updates about the case began to appear in the news. The biker had been identified, and police confirmed that they were preparing charges for assault and reckless endangerment. The public reaction remained strong, with many people continuing to express outrage and support for the young woman. The widespread attention increased the pressure on law enforcement to act swiftly and ensured that the case remained a priority. She felt a sense of relief knowing that action was being taken, and it reinforced her belief that justice would eventually prevail. Amid the ongoing attention, the young woman's days became a mixture of recovery and engagement with the growing attention surrounding her story. She spent mornings at home, slowly regaining strength, and afternoons following updates about the case. Every time she saw another post or news article sharing her experience, a wave of mixed emotions hit her. There was still fear and anger, but also gratitude and hope. She had survived a moment that could have been devastating, and the world had taken notice, reminding her that she was not invisible. News channels and social media were full of reactions. People debated the actions of the biker, expressed anger, and showed concern for her well-being. The sheer volume of messages, videos, and articles made it clear how many people cared, even if they had never met her. Some viewers offered advice on how to handle trauma, while others shared stories of resilience, showing her that she was not alone in facing fear and violence. She read each message carefully, finding comfort in the solidarity of strangers who empathized with her situation. Then one morning, she noticed something extraordinary. A prominent public figure known for speaking out against injustice and supporting victims had shared her story. The post condemned the attack and highlighted the importance of standing up against violence. The message resonated with millions, and her story began spreading even further, reaching people she could never have imagined. The young woman felt a mixture of shock and relief. Knowing someone with such influence was backing her cause made her feel seen and supported on a larger scale. As the post circulated, people began sharing her story more widely. Supportive messages poured in from across the country. Many offered kind words, some sent gifts or cards, and others pledged to advocate for safety and respect for vulnerable individuals. The young woman was humbled by the compassion and encouragement. She realized that her experience, while traumatic, had become a symbol for something bigger. It highlighted the dangers that disabled and pregnant people often faced and the urgent need for community protection and empathy. Despite the growing attention, she struggled with anxiety. The memories of the attack returned in unexpected moments, triggered by sudden noises or the sight of motorcycles passing by. She found herself checking the street carefully whenever she had to go out, her heart racing with each passing vehicle. Recognizing the importance of mental health, she began attending therapy sessions to cope with fear and trauma. The sessions helped her navigate complex emotions, teaching her techniques to manage stress and regain confidence. Slowly, she began to feel a renewed sense of control over her life. Her family continued to be her anchor. Her parents remained by her side, offering help and reassurance, while her siblings visited frequently, ensuring she never felt isolated. They encouraged her to rest and to focus on both her recovery and the baby's well-being. Family meals, laughter, and quiet conversations filled her apartment, creating an environment of love and comfort that was essential to her healing. She realized that the bonds of family could provide strength even in the face of fear and uncertainty. Meanwhile, police continued their investigation. The biker had been identified and was under surveillance. Authorities gathered additional evidence, including footage from other locations and eyewitness statements. They assured her that justice was being pursued and that safety measures were in place. Each update from the police gave her a sense of relief and validation. It reminded her that while the attack had been cruel and unexpected, the system was working to hold the perpetrator accountable. As the days went on, the woman began to interact with the wider community. Organizations advocating for the rights of disabled and pregnant people invited her to share her experience. She spoke about the importance of safety, respect, and awareness in public spaces. Her words resonated, inspiring discussions and encouraging initiatives to make streets and public areas more secure for vulnerable individuals. This engagement gave her a sense of purpose, transforming her trauma into a powerful tool for change. At the same time, she was navigating the ongoing attention from media outlets. Interviews, articles, and social media posts kept her story in the public eye. While this brought some stress, it also allowed her to control the narrative. She emphasized kindness, resilience, and the importance of community support in each interaction. Her authenticity resonated with audiences, helping to shift the focus from fear to empowerment and advocacy. Throughout this period, she also focused on her physical recovery. Daily exercises recommended by her doctor helped strengthen her muscles and improve mobility. Simple tasks that had once seemed difficult became achievable again, giving her confidence and a renewed sense of independence. She learned to manage her daily routine more effectively, balancing medical appointments, rest, and personal activities. Each small improvement reminded her that she could rebuild her life step by step. Her social support network continued to grow. Strangers who had initially reached out online remained in contact, offering encouragement and sharing resources. Some even connected her with local support groups for disabled and pregnant individuals. These connections provided a sense of community and reassurance, helping her feel less isolated in her experiences. She found comfort in knowing that people were willing to stand with her, both emotionally and practically. Despite all the progress, the emotional impact of the attack remained. She often reflected on the vulnerability she had felt and the unpredictability of life. The experience reminded her to cherish every moment and to focus on what she could control. She practiced mindfulness and meditation, using these techniques to calm her mind and manage anxiety. Slowly, the fear that had once dominated her thoughts began to diminish, replaced by a growing sense of resilience and determination. The involvement of the prominent public figure continued to amplify her story. He publicly praised her bravery and highlighted the need for justice. His support brought national attention to her case and increased pressure on authorities to act swiftly. The young woman was grateful for the recognition, knowing that it helped ensure her voice was heard and her experience was taken seriously. It also inspired her to continue advocating for safety and awareness in her community. In parallel, the police investigation advanced. The biker was located and questioned, and evidence from multiple sources confirmed the events of the attack. The authorities prepared to press charges, emphasizing the severity of the crime. The young woman felt a mix of anticipation and nervousness. She understood that legal processes could be lengthy and emotionally taxing, but she also knew that holding the perpetrator accountable was crucial, not only for herself but for the safety of others. Amid the legal developments, she continued to focus on her pregnancy. Regular doctor visits, ultrasounds, and prenatal care became central to her routine. Each appointment reassured her that her baby was healthy and thriving. She found joy in small movements and kicks from the baby, moments that reminded her of the resilience and continuity of life. The baby's well-being became a source of strength, motivating her to stay strong, face challenges, and embrace the support of those around her. She also began documenting her journey in detail. Journaling helped her process her emotions and reflect on her experiences. Writing allowed her to capture not only the trauma, but also the growth, support, and lessons learned. She included notes about the kindness of strangers, her family's unwavering presence, and the encouragement from online communities. This record became both a therapeutic exercise and a potential resource for others facing similar situations. As the story continued to unfold publicly, she received messages of encouragement from unexpected places. Some came from people who had been weeks past, and the young woman's life began to feel more stable, though the memory of the attack never fully left her. She had regained some mobility and was learning to navigate her surroundings with greater confidence. Each day brought a mixture of small victories like managing tasks independently and moments of anxiety, especially when encountering motorcycles or crowded areas. Despite these challenges, she felt a growing sense of empowerment, fueled by the support she had received and the knowledge that her story had reached far beyond her immediate community. The police continued their investigation with urgency. Through surveillance footage, witness accounts, and coordinated efforts across different districts, the biker was tracked down. Authorities confirmed that he had a history of reckless behavior, and this attack would not be treated lightly. The young woman followed every update closely, feeling a mixture of relief and anticipation. She knew that the legal process would take time, but she also felt reassured that justice was being pursued and that the biker would not remain free to harm others. As news of the arrest spread, public attention surged again. Supporters who had been following her story expressed relief and encouragement, praising her for her courage and patience. The young woman was touched by the continued care and concern from both strangers and friends. Messages poured in offering words of encouragement, practical support, and solidarity. Each message reminded her that she was not facing this alone, and that her voice had made a difference in bringing the crime to light. During this period, she also found comfort in her family. Her parents continued to provide steady support, attending to both her physical needs and emotional well-being. Her siblings remained close, visiting often and helping her with everyday tasks. Their presence provided a sense of normalcy and stability that was crucial for her recovery. They celebrated each small step forward with her, whether it was regaining mobility, attending a doctor's appointment, or simply spending time together without fear. Their love and encouragement strengthened her resolve to move forward with determination. In parallel, her engagement with the public continued to grow. She accepted invitations to speak with advocacy groups focused on safety and accessibility. She shared her experience, emphasizing the importance of awareness, kindness, and community support. Her story resonated with listeners, inspiring them to take action and support vulnerable individuals in their own neighborhoods. She discovered that speaking out and sharing her journey was empowering, giving her a sense of purpose beyond her personal recovery. The involvement of the prominent public figure who had previously shared her story continued to amplify awareness. He publicly praised her courage and dedication, highlighting the importance of holding perpetrators accountable and protecting vulnerable members of society. His support drew attention from media outlets and government officials, ensuring that her case remained in the public eye. The young woman felt a mix of gratitude and responsibility. She understood that her story was not only about her own experience, but also about advocating for safety and empathy on a larger scale. Despite the ongoing attention, she remained focused on her pregnancy. Routine doctor visits and prenatal care became central to her daily life. Each appointment reassured her that her baby was healthy and developing well. She found comfort in feeling the baby move, and those moments brought joy and a sense of hope. The focus on her child gave her a reason to continue building strength, both physically and emotionally. She practiced self-care diligently, incorporating rest, gentle exercises, and mindfulness practices to manage stress and maintain her well-being. Therapy continued to play a crucial role in her recovery. Through counseling sessions, she explored the emotional impact of the attack and developed strategies to cope with anxiety, fear, and stress. She practiced breathing exercises and visualization techniques, which helped her manage moments of panic or unease. Over time, these practices allowed her to regain a sense of control over her life and surroundings. She began to recognize her own resilience, understanding that surviving such a traumatic event required both courage and determination. Community support remained a cornerstone of her recovery. Friends, neighbors, and online supporters continued to reach out with messages of encouragement and practical help. Local groups organized initiatives to raise awareness about safety for disabled and pregnant individuals, using her story as a case study. The young woman felt inspired by these efforts, realizing that her experience could lead to meaningful change and greater protection for others in similar situations. As the legal proceedings approached, she prepared to testify against the biker. The thought of facing him in court was daunting, but she understood the importance of sharing her account clearly and honestly. With guidance from her lawyer and support from her family, she rehearsed the details of the incident and reflected on the impact it had on her life. The preparation helped her feel more confident and empowered, knowing that her testimony would contribute to justice and potentially prevent future attacks. On the day of the court hearing, she arrived with her family by her side. The courtroom was tense, filled with anticipation. As the trial began, she recounted the events of that day, the sudden approach of the biker, the collision, the fear and pain she experienced, and the support she received from bystanders. Her testimony was clear and composed, conveying both the trauma she endured and the courage she demonstrated in its aftermath. The courtroom listened intently, and the impact of her words was evident. She felt a sense of empowerment in taking an active role in the pursuit of justice. Throughout the trial, the community continued to show support. Friends and strangers alike attended the hearings, offering encouragement and solidarity. The presence of supportive individuals reinforced her sense of strength and resilience. She realized that the response of the community had helped her regain confidence, providing a foundation of empathy and care that she could rely on during difficult moments. The legal proceedings culminated in the biker being held accountable for his actions. The court acknowledged the severity of the attack, considering both the physical and emotional impact on the young woman and the potential danger to her unborn child. The sentence included both punishment and rehabilitation measures, ensuring that he would be closely monitored and would take steps toward addressing his behavior. The young woman felt a sense of relief and closure, knowing that justice had been served and that her efforts had contributed to holding the perpetrator responsible. In the aftermath of the trial, she focused on healing and preparing for the next chapter of her life. Her recovery continued, guided by medical care, therapy, and self-care routines. She embraced moments of joy and normalcy, finding comfort in daily routines, family interactions, and small victories. Each day, she regained more confidence and independence, slowly rebuilding her sense of security and stability. The young woman also reflected on the broader impact of her experience. Her story had sparked conversations about safety, accessibility, and empathy. Advocacy groups and community members were inspired to take action, creating initiatives to protect vulnerable individuals and raise awareness about the risks they faced. She felt proud that her experience had contributed to positive change, demonstrating the power of resilience and advocacy. As her pregnancy progressed, she continued to prioritize her health and well-being. Prenatal appointments, gentle exercises, and mindfulness practices remained central to her routine. She focused on nurturing both her body and her emotional state, ensuring that she could provide a safe and loving environment for her baby. The support from her family and community reinforced her confidence, reminding her that she was not alone in this journey. Through it all, the young woman recognized the strength and resilience she had discovered within herself. Surviving a traumatic attack, navigating recovery, and engaging in advocacy required courage, determination, and perseverance. She realized that her experience, while challenging, had revealed her capacity for resilience and the importance of community support. Her journey had become a testament to the human spirit, demonstrating that even in the face of fear and adversity, one could find strength, hope, and purpose. As she looked toward the future, she felt a sense of empowerment and determination. The attack had been a pivotal moment, but it had not defined her life. She was determined to continue advocating for safety, supporting others in similar situations, and embracing the joy and responsibility of motherhood. Her story had become a source of inspiration and awareness, showing that courage, compassion, and community could prevail even in the darkest moments. By the end of this chapter, the young woman had reclaimed her sense of agency and control. She had navigated the challenges of recovery, legal proceedings, and public attention with resilience and grace. Her journey had been difficult, but it had also revealed the power of human empathy, solidarity, and determination. With her baby growing safely inside her and a supportive community around her, she looked forward to the future with hope, strength, and the knowledge that her experience could inspire change, protect others, and celebrate the resilience of the human spirit. Inspired by her resilience, while others offered practical help for her mobility and daily life, these interactions reinforced the sense that her story had a ripple effect, encouraging empathy, action, and awareness. She realized that her courage in speaking out could create positive change beyond her personal experience. Gradually, she regained a sense of confidence in her daily life. Short walks outside, carefully navigated, helped her rebuild independence. Visits to friends' homes and community spaces allowed her to reconnect socially, despite lingering anxiety. She learned to balance caution with engagement, regaining a sense of normalcy while remaining aware of her environment. Each successful step reinforced her resilience and ability to face challenges. As the investigation neared a conclusion, the young woman felt a growing sense of closure. Police updates indicated that charges were being prepared, and the legal process would hold the biker accountable. This reassurance allowed her to focus more on her recovery, family, and baby rather than lingering fear. She felt empowered by the knowledge that justice was being pursued, and that her voice had played a crucial role in bringing attention to the incident. Through it all, the young woman continued to grow emotionally and mentally. She embraced the support around her, celebrated small victories, and remained committed to advocacy. She understood that while the attack had been a traumatic moment, it had also ignited a journey of resilience, awareness, and empowerment. Each day she felt stronger, more connected, and more determined to make her experience meaningful, not only for herself, but for others who might face similar challenges in the future. By the end of this chapter in her life, she had come to recognize her own strength and the power of community. The attack had been a harsh reminder of vulnerability, but it had also revealed the extraordinary capacity for human kindness and solidarity. With her baby growing safely inside her, she embraced hope, resilience, and the knowledge that her story could inspire change, protect others, and show the world that even in the darkest moments, courage and compassion could prevail. He also began to think about the future. She imagined the life of her child, the moments they would share, and the family she was building. The attack had been a frightening interruption, but it had also highlighted the importance of cherishing each day and finding strength in adversity. She began setting small goals for herself, focusing on her health, preparing for the baby's arrival, and gradually regaining her independence. Each step forward, no matter how small, was a victory against the fear and trauma that had briefly taken hold of her life. The support from strangers, friends, family, and even public figures had created a sense of community around her. It was a reminder that even in moments of vulnerability, people could come together to protect and uplift one another. The young woman felt a renewed sense of purpose, realizing that her experience could not only lead to personal growth and recovery, but also serve as a catalyst for raising awareness and inspiring positive change in her community. She was determined to use her voice to advocate for safety, empathy, and resilience. As the days turned into weeks, she continued to navigate her recovery while staying engaged with the public conversation around her story. She attended follow-up medical appointments, kept in touch with authorities, and remained an active voice in discussions about safety and advocacy. Her journey was challenging, but it was also a testament to her courage, resilience, and the power of community support. Each day brought small victories, whether it was regaining a bit more mobility, receiving a message of encouragement, or knowing that her story was helping others. She realized that while the attack had been a dark moment, it had also ignited a chain of compassion, advocacy, and strength that she could carry forward. Through it all, she kept focusing on the positive aspects: her recovery, the safety of her baby, the support from people around her, and the growing awareness about the importance of protecting vulnerable individuals. She understood that life could be unpredictable and sometimes cruel, but it also held immense potential for kindness, resilience, and community. She continued to build her strength, both physically and emotionally, determined to reclaim her life and to use her experience to make a meaningful impact. The incident had changed her, but it had not broken her. It had reminded her of her own courage and of the incredible power of human empathy and solidarity. At the hospital, doctors and nurses quickly took over, performing a thorough examination. They checked both her and the baby, running tests and monitoring their conditions closely. The young woman lay in the hospital bed, wrapped in a soft blanket, her hands resting on her belly as she felt the baby move. The relief she felt knowing that her child was unharmed brought tears to her eyes. She realized that despite the trauma, she was surrounded by people who cared, and she was not alone. She thought about the future, about the fight for justice, and about the support she had already received from strangers and loved ones alike. Even as she rested, her mind replayed the attack over and over. The roar of the motorcycle, the sudden collision, the way the wheelchair had tipped, all of it was vivid in her memory. She knew